What's up everybody? I'm free again. 14 days of isolation after my recent trip to Germany ended yesterday, which means that I'm now free to leave the house. I'm going to go for a run later. I'm back walking the dogs. It's exciting because I'm an outdoorsy person, so I'm really pleased to be back. Today's video is going to be covering many of the big F1 stories bubbling away in the background using the SeedStream app, as I always do. That's an app that I promised you last week I would give you an update on because I have now become officially involved. I told you that I was going to bring Ollie in, the guy behind it, to explain a little bit more about where the app's going in the future. That will be happening later today, now that I can actually have socially distanced visitors again. So he'll be popping around later. But in the meantime, I'm going to cover a lot of the stories inside the SeedStream F1 app because there's quite a lot going on in the background. So I have coffee, I am back released into the wild. Let's get on with it. Now, I'm going to start with a story that centres around Ferrari. You may remember back in pre-season testing, Ferrari were perhaps one of the biggest storylines outside of maybe DAS and perhaps the Racing Point or Pink Mercedes. Ferrari were one of the biggest headlines, but not for positive reasons, because they were seemingly off the pace, perhaps not even the third quickest team. And there was a lot of talk, if you remember, about their power unit and the investigation into that and how they managed it the year before. There were big question marks as to whether they may have had to peg back their performance to comply with the regulations to ensure that their power unit was being run in a legal fashion. Whatever the reasons, they were clearly off the pace. Then there was talk about them bringing some major upgrades to Austria. Engine upgrades, gearbox upgrades, aerodynamic upgrades. Yesterday, Mattia Binotto confirmed that the team will be bringing a car to Austria this weekend, which pretty much is the same specification that finished the Barcelona test. By the way, have you seen these cups before? They are brilliant. I know it's a really simple and basic idea, but when you're finished with them, they literally fold away like that and go in your pocket. I love it. Love a bit of technology like that. But the key point from Ferrari's message, or Mattia Binotto's message yesterday, was that they will be bringing a significant aerodynamic upgrade to the third round in Budapest. Now, right mate. Now, what he went on to say was that following pre-season testing, they essentially realised that they had some major problems aerodynamically. The car was not corresponding on the racetrack the way they thought it would from the results they'd had in their wind tunnel and CFD. When we talk about correlation issues, this is exactly it. You develop a car in a wind tunnel, or in your simulation tooling back at the factory, you base that all on the numbers that those systems throw out at you, and you develop your concept based on those numbers. Now, if the numbers don't match up to the real world, your development path can go off in a completely wrong direction. Now, every now and again this happens to a Formula One team. It's rare these days because the simulation tools and the wind tunnel testing is so accurate these days, particularly for a major, well-funded team like Ferrari. But it would appear that right now they've got some serious correlation issues within that Ferrari organisation. And essentially, they have reimagined the entire aerodynamic concept off the back of pre-season testing, and we won't see that until the third round in Budapest, meaning that we'll go to these first two races in Austria probably with a Ferrari that, if we base it on pre-season testing, may actually only be the fourth quickest car. And given that many of the other teams will have taken giant leaps forward over this break, maybe not even the fourth quickest team. Now, you might notice that there is only one dog with me today, and that's because whilst I am now out of my 2-week quarantine, poor old Pharrell, well, he's just gone into quarantine because he had the op yesterday. So the poor little guy has got the giant cone of shame around his head and has to stay in for a while. So today, it's just us two. Come on, buddy. Now, the other thing that Ferrari will be doing this weekend in Austria is carrying a message of support for Alex Zanardi. Alex had a second operation recently, which by all accounts went well, but he's still in a very serious but stable condition. following his second neurological operation after suffering serious head and facial injuries after a collision with a truck on his handbike recently. Terrible situation for Alex, but great that Ferrari will be carrying stickers saying #ForzaAlex on either side of the roll hoop just under the camera engine air intake. So well done for them on that one. Carlos Sainz has admitted that he's concerned about the prospect of missing a race this season due to the coronavirus. He's talking about how the procedures are changing and all the F1 teams are keeping their personnel in small bubbles within the team, so that if an outbreak occurs or if somebody tests positive, they're able to isolate a small group of people in an ideal world, is what they're hoping, rather than having to isolate the entire team. But of course, if a driver gets this, they will, like anybody else in the team, have to quarantine or isolate for a period of 14 days, which will put them out of at least one race, much more likely 2, potentially even 3 Grand Prix. So this is a pretty serious situation, and because of that, the teams and the drivers and all personnel are having to take this very seriously, because as soon as something like this could potentially impact your performance, your sporting performance over a season, a championship challenge, you know, essentially your career as an F1 driver, it becomes the very highest priority, like anything else in Formula One. And what Carlos goes on to say is that after many months of not racing and taking the utmost care, you could still have a bit of bad luck in that you might have 0 symptoms and feel perfectly well, but test positive for the virus and have to miss races. Or somebody on your car crew might have a positive test through not necessarily a fault of their own. And because of that, because of the close interactions between some of these people within the garage, they will all potentially have to isolate themselves for 2 weeks. So it's a really serious threat, probably the biggest threat that the teams all face now in terms of mounting a championship challenge over the course of a season. You know, prior to that, you think about things like accidents or injuries to a driver or somebody falling unwell through something else which is incredibly rare. Now there's this incredibly contagious virus that Formula One are trying everything they can to prevent entering this bubble. But if it does, because of the close working nature of Formula One teams, the chances of it spreading quickly are very, very high. Now, creating a Formula One app is no mean feat. It's not the work of a moment, it's definitely not easy, but my mate Ollie did just that with the SeedStream app some time ago. Many thousands of you are now using it on a very regular basis, including me. So I promised you some exciting news, an update on that. I also promised you that Ollie would pop round later to tell you all about it himself, and that's exactly what's about to happen now. And here he is. This is Ollie, the guy behind SeedStream, and I've brought him along today to give us an idea of where the project began right back in the beginning, and even more exciting than that, where it's going in the future.
Sure. So this is an idea I had while studying at uni, and it was a project I really wanted to work on because I wanted to build a platform that made accessing all the content to a single topic really easy and accessible. So when a story breaks, I wanted somewhere where every single news article, podcast, video, social media post all came together, so I really got an idea of that full story.
Yeah, and we started it, of course, with the platform of Formula One, which is how I got involved. It's obviously been great for me and for many of you guys, but the end goal for this is way bigger. It could cover all sports, literally all news articles, any subject we want. And whilst at the moment we've been doing this on a pretty much zero budget, and Ollie's been getting up every day literally typing in the news articles himself, there's some great technology that can help us take this to a whole new level.
Absolutely, yeah. The artificial intelligence technology that's out there will automatically link all this stuff together. And that's great because, like you say, I've been writing all this stuff at the moment myself, and that means I'm limited by time. I can't find everything that is out there. So the technology will be able to deliver a far greater wealth of content and really be able to link it together in a really smart way. But of course we have bigger plans as well, and that is to include all the premium content that's out there. So that's all the stuff that is currently restricted behind individual paywalls, which I think we know is increasing all the time. And we want to make that accessible in the app as well, but for one monthly fee that we would then share with the publishers or the creators of that content.
Yeah, so it's a really clever idea, really clever model. I've become fully invested in this, as you now know. I'm officially part of the programme, and there's some exciting news that to take us to this next level, these guys can get involved too.
Absolutely. So, I mean, like you said, this is been operating on a zero budget, and that means that we have been restricted as to how far we can get. So we're now looking to raise the funding we need to not only employ the artificial intelligence technology that we've spoken about, but also buy the rights to the premium content as well. And so we're really excited to announce that we have partnered with the equity crowdfunding platform Seedrs. Now, they are going to help us to raise the capital we need to take this to the next level, but the exciting thing is you guys can get involved and invest from as little as £10 if you're in the UK, or €10 if you're in Europe.
Yeah, so very, very exciting. This is a platform that's been shaped by you guys already. Now here's an opportunity to shape it even further. There's links in the description of how you can go about doing this, and the first stage for anyone who may be interested without committing anything is to follow the pre-registration link.
Sure, so the pre-registration link, you will literally just enter your information in to notify us of your interest, and you'll get an email when the campaign goes live. And like you say, that doesn't constitute any sort of commitment. It just gives us an idea of what we can expect from the community. But this is something that we really wanted to do because this has been such a community-driven project. I mean, nearly 3,000 of you regularly come back to the app to get your Formula One news and information. And whether you've left positive or negative feedback, I can't thank you enough, because you have helped to shape the platform and its growth one way or another. Now, I do have to say that obviously, because this is a financial investment, it does come with the risk of losing capital. But like Mark said, everything is in the description below for you to go and check out and get more information.
Go do it now. Another couple of stories just to touch on before we go. One that we actually covered on Monday night in the live stream, which, by the way, if you join me on Monday, thank you. How good was Dan? Amazing. One of you guys that I selected at random through all of your requests on Instagram and Twitter, I picked a guy called Dan, together with his girlfriend, both NHS superstars over the last few months, and what a brilliant star he was on the show. He was excellent. So much good feedback, so many really nice comments about him, so thank you. And well done. Thank you to Dan as well for that. Stories that we need to finish up on. One, we touched on, as I say, on Monday, Mercedes going with a black livery for the rest of the season, which I think is a really great gesture. And it's not just a token gesture. There is a much bigger operation at play within Mercedes to try and have a much more inclusive and diverse workforce. So hats off to them. That's amazing. The story within the SeedStream app suggests that it was Lewis who suggested that idea a couple of months back, spoke to Toto, and the team carried it and ran with it. So cars and the driver overalls will be black for the remainder of the season, so that's great. Another story that I thought was quite interesting, Helmut Marko talking about how it was him, or at least Red Bull, that really pushed to get Formula 2 and Formula 3 back on the calendar, joining Formula 1 for this unprecedented 2020 season. And the main reason that he was so keen to do that was because they have such an interest in the young drivers operating in those two categories, particularly when they don't yet have a 2021 driver lineup confirmed. Yes, they've got Max locked in. Max's teammate still undecided, and Helmut Marko's words suggested they are very much looking at the junior categories for the next Red Bull driver to move up into Formula 1. So that I thought was an interesting take as well. And the other one I just wanted to finish up on, oh hello, can you see this guy here? No, you can't. Hello. So good to be back out running, by the way. I've definitely missed this, running up and down my own garden. It's just not quite the same. Let's just, before I get going again, two final things. First of all, Renault have confirmed Sergei Sorokin as the reserve driver for 2020, which may not be a massive surprise, but it will be a disappointment to all those who were perhaps hoping that Fernando Alonso could potentially step in, if required, during this season. And the other one was for race fans in America, hoping that we may still get a US Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas. Things are not looking up, and partly that's because we haven't confirmed anything beyond Europe at this stage, but also because out there in that part of America there is a growing spike of cases of the virus, which doesn't look good. The other thing is that Formula 1 are expecting the overseas markets to pay a fee for hosting a Grand Prix, which for European rounds, all behind closed doors of course, they are waiving. Now for COTA, for the Circuit of the Americas in Texas, that's a particular blow because it's the local government that largely fund that Grand Prix, and with the troubles that they're having to face locally from the pandemic, It's not clear yet, but looking more and more unlikely that they'll be willing to put that much funding into a sporting event like Formula One, unfortunately. We will see. Here he is. Feel so sorry for him. I mean, he's like a wrecking ball in the house anyway. Dude, wait a minute. He's like a wrecking ball. And with this thing on, it's positively dangerous. That's it for today, folks. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. All the links you need for any of that SeedStream stuff is all in the description. That's if you want to go and use it, because the prototype version of the app is still available now on the Android or iPhone devices, so definitely go and use it. It's great, really enjoy it. But if you do want to get involved, there is no pressure from me. I'm not forcing this upon anybody. This is literally, I hope you'll see it as providing an opportunity to you guys before we allow it to anybody else. So by signing up to that pre-registration link, you will be given first dibs when the project goes live. You'll get notified. And as Ollie said earlier, there's literally no commitment at this point. It's just about registering your interest. So go ahead, check all the links out, all the info in the description, and I'll see you tomorrow for the preview to the Austrian Grand Prix, race 1. Come here, buddy. Come here. Hello. Yes. Hello.